Alright, hey everybody, welcome to my bedroom and your video announcement for the night as promised. We have a lot of things to go over, so I actually made us a list. The first thing, I had a few shows coming up in Arkansas later on this month, and due to some issues that are out of my control, I've actually had to drop off those shows. I really feel horrible about it, and I promise that I will get those rescheduled as soon as possible. There's just a lot of things that are going on right now. I'm actually going to be having surgery here pretty soon. And so all of that got me to thinking, since I can't be out on the road right away for a while, I want to start doing more video blogs for you guys to keep you updated, let you know what's going on. And if you've ever been to my YouTube channel before, and you better have, I've done a few devotionals and Bible study type videos, so I definitely want to start doing more of those from here since I can't be out there with you. As of right now, the only show that I have booked that is actually staying booked is Not So Silent Night, and that's going to be at the compound, Tulsa, Bixby, Oklahoma area. I'm really excited about that. This show is going to be such a blessing. It's benefiting CASA, and they support abused and neglected children. Beyond that, Matt Baird of Spoken is going to be there, and doing a show with him is incredibly scary to me. I remember, being in my room, writing out, my testimony for the first time and listening to Spoken. It kind of like encouraged me and got me pumped and ready to get up there and do what I need to do. And so that kind of brings me to our next topic. I've been thinking a lot about obedience lately, and I was on Twitter yesterday, and I came across this really cool quote that I fell in love with, and I absolutely agree with 100%. It said, "If the God you serve doesn't challenge you to holiness and make you uncomfortable, you're worshiping a false god of your own creation." That's absolutely true. I retweeted it, and I actually copied that and texted it to a few people. And my sister actually texted me back, and she was like, "Makes you uncomfortable?" And I was like, well, yeah, God constantly challenges us to become better. And he gives us decisions to make that are very scary and that we don't want to make at all. But when you make the right decision, you are going to be incredibly blessed. And that's something I've definitely learned throughout the past year. I've also learned that even though these decisions seem really scary, that the only thing that you actually have to fear is being outside of God's will. I mean, being outside of that is probably the scariest place you can imagine. So I was at work earlier on break, and I pulled up my YouVersion, my Bible app, and decided to look up the word obedience to give you guys a couple of verses. And the first one that popped up that really stood out to me was Psalms 128:1, that says, "Blessed are all who fear the Lord, who walk in obedience to him." And I'll be the first to tell you, I mean, what did we just talk about? I'm doing this show with somebody that I looked up to, and that is truly by the grace of God and by making those difficult decisions. So I looked up a couple more verses because I wanted to give you guys a really good example, biblical example of blessings. And so 1 Kings chapter 3, I think, has a really good example of that. Solomon's dreaming. And God comes to him in his dream, and he's like, what do you want from me? What would you like me to give you? And Solomon seemed like, you know what? It was like, my father has been so faithful to you. And I've seen, the kindness that you've given to him and the ways that you've blessed him, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to be that person that you want me to be. And all I want is for you to give me a heart of discernment so that I can tell right from wrong and good from evil. And I can know what to do, and I can know how to lead your people. And so God is extremely happy about that, because it wasn't like a selfish thing at all, like, oh, kill my enemies or, anything like that. And so he's like, yeah, absolutely. He was like, I'm going to give you that heart. And moreover, because of the decision that you just made, I'm going to give you wealth. I'm going to give you honor. And then he goes on to say in verse 14 that he's going to give him a long life if he lives in obedience to God. And then Deuteronomy 5:33 kind of goes along with that and says something kind of similar. It says, walk in obedience to all that the Lord your God has commanded you, so that you may live long and prosper and prolong your days in the land that you will possess. We could go on forever and ever and ever about verses talking about obedience and the blessings that come from that. But I think we also need to take some time to talk about what obedience is and what it is that God commanded you. One of my favorite verses to always go back to is in 1 Timothy chapter 3. And the main focus of that is, talking about living above reproach. Specifically, he's talking to elders and people that have chosen to be overseers. People that are like your pastors and people that are on stage, in band, your Christian bands or your speakers or, things like that. How they should live in order to teach, encourage, and be a good example to God's people. And the main focus of that is talking about living above reproach. And if you don't know what that is, reproach is basically blame or doing something that causes discredit to the things that you're saying. This is kind of lame, but I was watching a Lifetime movie last night called The Preacher's Daughter, and there was a really good example of not living above reproach in that. There was the music leader at the church, and he, was married, he had kids, cute little family and stuff. He was up in the pulpit every Sunday leading people and, in their worship and their hymns and this and that. And Sundays after church, he was giving vocal lessons to the preacher's daughter, and he ended up sleeping with her. And she got pregnant and, all of that stuff. So, but that is a perfect example of not living above reproach and discrediting, the things that you stand for. That's going against, completely against what you're supposed to stand for as someone that's leading God's people. Which is why I think 1 Timothy is so important to all of us, because, maybe you're not in a pulpit and you're not on stage, but that doesn't mean that you're not, leading God's people in your everyday life, and, hanging out with your friends or being at work or at school or whatever. So it goes on and lists things specifically, like being faithful to your wife, your spouse, being temperate, self-controlled, respectable, not given to drunkenness, not violent or quarrelsome. The list goes on and on. And of course, there's other verses. There's, obviously you have your 10 Commandments. You have Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. There's tons of things, tons of places you can look, and I'll have a few of those listed down below in the information, as well as the verses that we already talked about, so you can go back and look them up and study a little bit more on your own and in detail. If you guys have any questions, you can definitely feel free to send me a message on my Facebook. And if you have prayer requests too, I would love to pray for you guys. So that's pretty much all for now. But I will see you guys soon. You guys have a good night. Love you. Bye.